now, which is Cara. I just want to do a little intro to her. So after transitioning, she struggled to get back into exercise. Cycling not only brought her joy and freedom, but also made her feel really good about her body again. So I'd love you to welcome Cara, and she's our third speaker for today. Hi, Cara.
Hiya. Can I have my slides? Is that okay? Yeah. I'm quite nervous about speaking publicly. It's been a while since I've done it, so I've made myself some slides to talk through. I've titled this presentation, I Quite Like Bikes. There's not really a deeper meaning to it than that, but I'm just going to talk around the subject a little bit. Can I have the next slide, please? Okay, right, so here am I. I am a mum. I'm a programmer by day, musical by night. I have OCD. I'm bisexual and polyamorous, and I'm also quite tall. That's my Twitter bio. I've just copied and pasted it here rather than thinking of anything else. I'm a transgender cyclist. So I transitioned in 2018, and I actually started cycling in 2020. That's a little bit of a lie. I cycled as a kid, but I stopped in adulthood and then kind of picked it up again when I was the ripe old age of 30. My star sign is Cancer. My favorite color is blue, and there would be more words there. The template needed extra words in it. So go to the next page. Oh, it's gone too far. There we go. So a key theme of my talk is transgenderism. I think it's important, if you are a person who is transgender, to kind of build an identity outside of being trans too. But I think the core of this talk is really about how cycling kind of helped me to navigate the process of transition in a way that maybe people wouldn't always think about naturally. So it's learning to love yourself. Gender is hard. I think that everybody who has grown up a woman or a girl and grown into a woman has at some point had social pressure to be perfect or to be a certain kind of way. And I sort of walked into that at the age of 27 and kind of met myself in a world where it's like, you have to be perfectly feminine and thin, and you have to look like a cis woman, you have to be acceptable, and you have to be short. I'm 6'3", working on it. I think maybe if I really work hard, I can lose an extra couple of inches. But in many ways, I stand out, and I don't necessarily meet the norms of what people are expecting. And that can be a challenge. Can I change the page? No. Is it actually changing for you and then later for me? Okay, we've gone one too far. Next one. Yeah, so you don't necessarily meet these norms, but you I don't know, you just have to find a way to fit in with it, don't you? So one thing that I have always found that helps me when I'm going through a difficult period with body image or just a generally difficult part of life is exercise. And there are, huge benefits to exercise when you're having a hard time. Endorphins are brilliant. Moving your body feels really good. It's a great way to connect with what really matters and sort of recontextualize and prioritize things. But actually, it's hard to exercise when you're trans. Body image is difficult enough, and I'm sure anybody who's had like their body change in major ways throughout their life, which is most of us, has kind of maybe had some understanding of how it can be hard to put yourself out there after that change. There's politics. There's a lot of headlines about trans women in sports, in changing rooms, online, in the papers. It sometimes strays into hate speech, and there's a lot of anxiety and fear of being harassed. Like if I use the gym, mostly I have to stay quiet and hide as best as I can and kind of blend in, which is hard when you're 6'3" and generally quite a noisy person. I don't really like the gym very much. So I was kind of looking for other things to do. And can they change the slide? Thank you. I tried running for a bit. I used to run quite frequently back in my early 20s, but I have been harassed while running. Sometimes quite nasty sort of transphobic abuse, sometimes just generally quite gendered nastiness. I also, at the time of this, I have a 4-year-old now, but obviously at the time he was 2. And it's quite hard to fit regular running in, actually. Like if you have a small child, I'm sure a lot of parents have this experience of just, when do you find time to regularly exercise? Because I have a very, I have a very supportive and hardworking partner, but like we've both got to figure out how to get the movement into our days. And actually, like, cycling was something that really helped with this. So can we change the slide? I was dating somebody in early 2020 who was quite a keen cyclist, and they kind of encouraged me to get back on my bike. So I had a tiny, tiny green bike, much too small for me, and some big hills to climb. The actual bike was a bit bigger than my son's one. It's on the next slide. So the real bike was this one, which not much of an improvement, but still far, far too small for me. It wasn't as rusty as this at the time. Again, can I have the next slide? Sorry. So why cycle? For me, one of the big draws was the freedom to kind of go where I wanted to. Like the previous speaker, I can't drive. I don't really want to drive. It seems like I'm rubbish at it. I get distracted, and I really like the idea of being able to go where I wanted, essentially for free. So for me, like, cycling had this huge draw. But on the next slide, there's some more advantages for why cycling. Health and well-being. Climbing up a massive hill gives you strong legs and powerful lungs. I'm quite asthmatic, so actually being able to have like a higher base level of breathing was really good for me. I live on the edge of the Peak District, and it's so tempting there. It's so beautiful, and I was just finding it hard to make time to go and see it. And actually, I'm really blessed because, like, today, I just went for a ride into the Peak District with a friend and had a nice adventure on my lunch break. And that's a really, really lovely thing to be able to do. Excitement and flavour. I am a clumsy person, but I'm also somebody who loves extreme sports. Cycling off-road, we have a fairly nice mountain bike track in the centre of Sheffield, and gravel cycling can be quite challenging as well. So that can be as fun as it is scary. Did take a nice tip a few days ago. I managed to get scratches all down my face. But there's also self-love, which I'll get to a bit more because it's sort of the thesis of this presentation. So how did I get started? As I say, it was only a few years ago. In the first 6 months, it was horrible. Sheffield. Okay, sorry, I forgot to mention that I live in Sheffield. Sheffield is a very hilly city. I mean, I sort of live halfway at the end of a valley, so anywhere I go, I have a pretty nasty climb to either get there or get home. But it does get easier, and I think that that's actually a really useful lesson to people who cycle in a hilly place. A lot of the time is that, like, it can be horrible for a long time, but then hills stop feeling awful and they start being something that you might even start to enjoy. And a bike that fits was difficult too. You saw my bike there. It's, I think, actually a child's bike, a large child's bike. But I picked up cycling during the global shortage of bikes. So in the end, what I did was I bought an ex-hire bike from Derwent Hire in the Peak District. So it was a bike that I could sit on that would fit my day-to-day life. And I also got a vintage road bike from A Different Gear, which is an amazing business here in Sheffield that refurbishes old bikes and sells them at a very reasonable price. It's just, I hate wastage, so it's really nice to be able to get things that have been refurbished as well. So on the next page, I think there's a picture of them. There's actually a child seat on the one at the back. That's the ex-hire one, because one of the big things that I use my bike for is commuting. I have a 4-year-old and he travels to nursery on the front of my bike and then back home again afterwards. And if I go to work, I go afterwards on my own. So he loves it. He's great on a bike. It's just getting a bit too big for that front seat, which is really hard because I don't know, I could put him on a rear mounted seat, but actually, like, I think he's getting old enough that we kind of need to be thinking about a tag-along bike. And that's a scary thought, I think. But yeah, cycling just became everything. It became the way that I'd get around. It became a way to bond with my son. He really, really enjoys going on off-road trails and things like that as well. I think it's really good for him too. It gives him confidence. It's really useful for him to have that time outside every single day as well. You know, and he's quite bossy, so it's nice for him to be able to like go that way, and you know, you should go faster or go slower and things like that. So yeah, next slide, please. What I do with a bike, commute, ride to nursery every day. The photos here, that was a bit tongue-in-cheek. That doesn't exist anymore, but that was my favourite bit of cycling infrastructure in Sheffield for a while, because it just stops there, right in the middle of the city centre. The Peak District, you know, I've ridden my bike to go swimming, lots of adventures, sunshine and picnics. Peak District is incredibly beautiful and something that we have in common with the Manchester lot over here. And gravel riding, it's always fun to get a bit muddy. My least favourite thing is cleaning the bike afterwards, though. And next page. But the main thing that I got out of cycling was sort of self-love. And I think that it's probably a really basic message that, you know, almost seems like a truism to a lot of people, but it's really valuable if you can love your body for what it can do rather than how it looks. And I understand that it doesn't work for everybody, but for me, cycling gave me the ability to see my body as mine, as a thing that I could work on and feel satisfied with. And it wasn't really about how people were perceiving me. It was about what I could do and how I could feel powerful, or how I could feel, how it could take me on adventures, or how it could help me to be a better mother, or, you know, how it could just enable all the things in my life that really mattered. And like, that really shifted myself from being in a place of terrible, terrible body image and self-image to actually sort of loving myself as I am. And that's not something that comes easy when you're transgender. So it's something that I'm very happy with, and something that cycling has really given me. And, you know, I do want to acknowledge something on the next page, if that's okay. Oh, wait, no, I've got another slide in the middle I completely forgot about. You know, things that I like when I'm cycling is climbing on big hills. You know, it's a really nice feeling to be able to go somewhere that you couldn't get before without stopping, and be able to do it now. Bike nerds, you know, the Northern Rollers have been absolutely great. That's like another cycling collective. Especially last summer, it was amazing, and super organized. Like, some of the rides were so good. And then like I did things like, my partner was doing the coast to coast, so I just joined for the last leg of it, and it was so nice riding with a bunch of really nice people. We have a group here in Sheffield called Peak Queer Adventures. That's more broad than just cycling, but actually, you know, riding with other queer and transgender people, it's been really nice as well. Having like a group of people on bikes, you're all having a great time, full of endorphins, and you've all got things in common. That's brilliant. And then being an evangelist, dragging my friends to beautiful places. That is actually a picture of my girlfriend in her road bike full of mud in a place where she shouldn't really be riding a road bike, because I dragged her to it. But I get to share those things with other people, and that's really nice too. So I have one last slide. And I think it's worth just acknowledging the privilege of being able-bodied and being able to do these things. You know, I feel incredibly grateful that my body cooperated and I could learn to do the things that I was asking of it. You know, I do understand that this is something that's worked for me, and it doesn't necessarily work for everybody. I'm also lucky to have a great community. You know, here in Sheffield, we're very lucky, in the north in general. And also living in Sheffield, we have cycle infrastructure. It's not very good cycle infrastructure, but it exists. You know, I use the cycle lane every day rather than having to go on a big main road to get my son to and from nursery. And Sheffield, in places, is really nice. It's really pretty. And also, because I was doing this slide with my wife earlier, she pointed out that, you know, I am quite lucky in that I am able to fit in, you know, with the group of cyclists that I have locally. And I'm not kind of ostracized. I have access to people who are similar to me, who are doing similar things. And I think that is a huge thing too. So that's the end of my slides. And if you have any questions, I'm very happy to answer them.
Oh, thank you so much, Cara. So many great, like, I've got a lot of friends that are parents now, and I have to wonder, how do they fit in doing the things they love, like cycling and being a parent? And like, oh yes, just so many topics. I'll hand it over to Beth now. I think there's quite a few questions for you in the chat box, and she's going to ask you some questions.
Okay, sure.
Thanks so much, Cara. I think everyone's all super inspired, and we're all. I think we all needed that body confidence talk. I think we all feel that way a lot of the time. So a question from Heidi. I think you may have answered it briefly, but have you joined any local clubs or groups, and did you feel welcomed and included?
Yeah, for sure. The nice thing about Northern Role is actually like a lot of people who are kind of involved in it are gender diverse anyway. So I'm never worried about the trans thing. You know, and I haven't joined any of the mainstream cycling clubs. I didn't like the idea of joining a club that didn't have a no drop policy. You know, I felt like if I was to go to somewhere where it is very competitive and there's like a minimum speed and standard that you have to meet, like maybe sometimes I could meet that standard, but a lot of the time I wouldn't be able to, and I didn't feel like that was what I was looking for. And also like I like riding with people where if you see something beautiful on the way, you stop and have a look and have a nice time and maybe have a sip of water and enjoy the scenery. I'm not a big fan of, you know, just zooming past as fast as you can at full speed all the time.
I think most of us here will agree, yeah, bike rides are more than just bike riding, aren't they? There's so much more to it than that. So no, that's awesome. Anna has gone a bit off topic. I want to know your favourite swimming spots in the Peak District.
I'm actually a very big fan of Agden Reservoir, which sounds really basic because it's quite an obvious choice, but I like that it's close to my house. I like that it has kind of nice privacy. And I went there on a really hot day last summer, and there were loads of people circling the shores, almost like having little parties and swimming and stuff. And it was just such a lovely place. It's one of my favourite spots. You know, and it's nice that because it's a reservoir, the water level changes and you get a different view each time as well.
That's great, thank you. Maybe we'll need to do a ride to there now as well to add to our list of roller skating, ride to the reservoir.
Yeah, I'm not endorsing riding and swimming in reservoirs, by the way. You know, definitely check permission from your local water authorities before swimming in anything outside.
Debs has said, thank you so much, Cara, for sharing your story. It's not easy talking about ourselves. She loves that self-love is what you got from cycling. She wants to know what advice you'd give someone who has a low self-image about their body.
I mean, I don't feel like it's my place to give advice, really. I wanted to talk about something that worked for me. You know, and I think that actually one thing that really helped was I was surrounded by people who had a similar philosophy. You know, people who had eating disorders in the past or who had difficult relationships with their bodies, who kind of overcame that through activity and through kind of athletic achievement almost. So I think if you're in the right community, it's just something that happens, it's something that works out, but I'm afraid I don't really have a general answer, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's great. I think everybody's got a lot from what you've shared already. I think we can all see ourselves in your kind of experiences. So thank you for that. Ayashatu's asked, what helped or helps you feel safe when cycling as a woman?
It sounds really stupid, but being fast helps a lot. You know, I feel a lot safer out riding than I do out walking, because I feel like I can get away from dangerous situations more quickly. As I mentioned, you know, I have been harassed while out running and things like that, and it's a bit of a terrifying situation. It's not always that clear how you can leave. With riding, I guess I just haven't had that many horrible experiences. Like there's the standard catcalling when you're sat waiting for lights and things like that, but mostly just riding in familiar places. I don't generally ride at night. And if I do, I'm usually as part of a group.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's quite common, I think, for women to feel safer riding than they do walking. So yeah, it does offer that different freedom, I suppose. Mm-hmm. And one final question I think we've got we've got a great link actually shared in the chat by Richard around Emily Bridges, who's a trans woman and elite cyclist, one to read for later. And final question from Stephen about your son, and what age did your son feel the balance when riding with you? For example, not wriggle around and risk tipping you over.
He was really good from quite a young age, actually. You know, and he still has moments where like he tells deliberately trying to push me over. But yeah, for the most part, like he's always leaned when I lean. I think I started cycling with him when he was 2. But he's never really struggled with that side of it. So we've been quite lucky. I know that some kids find that aspect of it quite hard, but I think that actually the front mounted seat is really good for that, because they're sort of holding onto the handlebars, and that gives them a sort of natural steer in a certain direction. For a while, on the straight bar bike, I had like another second sort of set of handlebars on top of the original handlebars for him to hold on to, so that I could have like I could have room for my actual hands to hold on to it. We switched to a bike with kind of drop bars now, so he has the middle section to hold on to, and then I hold on to the drops, which works quite well actually. But that sort of having me actually holding on to the bike properly really helps with his sense of balance, I think.
Great, thank you so much. Some tips, I think, for some parents out there who are probably thinking of doing the same. That's amazing. Cool, thank you so much for joining us, Cara. That's amazing. If anyone else has got any further questions, we can always pop them over to Cara later, or she can put them in the chat. So thank you very much. Back to you, Roseanne.
Yeah, thank you so much, Cara. It's just so much to think about, like feeling safe as a woman, like body image, just so many things. So thank you for sharing your story. So moving on to our final speaker for tonight.